You don't have to decide to have multiple relationships. You absolutely don't. No one has to. No one has to decide to have one relationship. And if you're happy being by yourself, awesome. Or if you're happy with a friend circle and community, awesome, do that. But we're not in the Mandalorian. We don't have to follow the way. We can actually make our own way.
Voices of the Goddess.
Welcome to Voices of the Goddess, where authenticity is our compass and self-love is our North Star.
I'm Julietta, your guide through the realms of healing and self-discovery. As a holistic healer, light worker, way shower, and catalyst for positive change, I walk alongside you on this sacred path of awakening.
And I'm your co-host, Graciela. As a seasoned photographer, Reiki master, sound practitioner, and cacao ceremonialist, I love infusing my artistry with the alchemy of healing and ceremony.
Together, we create a safe space where your authenticity is celebrated, your voice is honored, and your heart is held in the embrace of love.
Join us as we dive deep into soulful conversations and journey towards the essence of who you really are.
Welcome to Voices of the Goddess. There we go. We are here again, live on Voices of the Goddess. How you doing over there, Graciela?
Woo, it's shaping up to be an exciting day.
Yeah, I can't believe the day that I've scheduled for myself. Between 5 episodes here, 3 clients afterwards.
Wow.
It's going to be a wonderful, intense day. I love every minute of it.
I'm impressed. I as the longer I live, the more I lean into my boyfriend's way of viewing life, which is like, I only want to do one thing per day. I used to stack myself like that, lots of big projects throughout the day. And lately my theme is like, I left the house once today. I don't think I'll be out again. I have one of those, I resisted for the longest time, those couches with the recliners built in, but we have one. And I'm telling you, I don't know if it's an ADHD, whatever. I don't know what it is, but the moment my feet go up, I'm like, party's over. That's it. Don't call me for anything. I'm not going.
Well, I'm not leaving the space here. I will be in my sanctuary. So it's all good. And I love so much what I do. I love being here and the conversations that happen. I love my members who come to have healing sessions with me, like my verbiage. I'm getting it down. But I was telling you earlier, I started telling you about this client of mine. I was talking about like abundance and money issues. That's something that, in the grand scheme of life, my life is very abundant. And, but money is probably top of the list of the things that I'll label it a struggle, I've never been homeless. I've never not had food on my plate, clothes on my back, a roof over my head. But I would like things financially to be easier for me. And so I had a client come in talking about, she's a mom who, took time off to have children, but they're both in school now. And so she has more time on her hands and is wanting to get back into the working world and making money. And so she starts talking about her money issues with, beliefs around her being good enough for people to pay her for what she does. And so we start down, the path, talking about limiting beliefs and stuff. And in the work that I've been doing recently, it's like, I thought I did this work, but I realized I still hold a lot of negative beliefs about the people that hold a lot of money in this world and, between the powers that be, and then coming from the medical world and looking at big pharma and the insurance companies and just realizing I have all this negative belief. And she starts talking to me about her belief about the people who have the money are the people that are in alignment and that are, doing the spiritual work and they're on point. And if she doesn't have money, it's because she's not on. And I was just like, wow, mind blown that she thinks that the money people are the people that are in alignment with source, universe, etc. And
it's really interesting. You know, when you were saying aligned, I thought, well, yeah, that's sure. I mean, if you are aligned in your beliefs and your actions follow your beliefs, then you will achieve whatever it is that you're looking for. I don't know how or if, you know, certain, like when we talk about spirituality, what that looks like to us might not be what it looks like to them. I don't know, just kind of based on actions, right? But I do agree that wealth is a practice, that it needs to be cultivated. Like, you know, to me, wealth and worth are they're like kissing cousins. For me anyway, that's my story. Is, you know, when I feel not worthy, then I don't have, I'm having a package delivered and he's staring at me wanting to come in the door. And I'm like, just put it down. Just put it down. Anyway. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, worth and wealth. Right. And so I've been doing, because this is an issue, has always been an issue for me as well. Right. Like, I've gone through periods of my life where I've had plenty of money, and I've gone through periods of my life where, you know, we were living on food stamps, and I've done it all. And at the end of the day, I realized, like, where I'm at now, which is not the end of the day, but where I am now is that wealth requires a conscious effort, and my money beliefs require a conscious effort. I'm not going to be gifted a sudden confidence around wealth. So I dove into the Project 369 books, which I absolutely love. And I do the work exactly, like I'm following all the directions, and I am noticing massive shifts in my life, you know, not just because of all the other work that we've done, right? Because we have done a lot of personal development and things like that, but it's really powerful to see that the constant reminder that the belief comes before the result. Like, it's the result doesn't create the belief creates the result, right? And so you know, if I were to say anything about manifesting, it's got to start up here and not out there. That's just the bottom line.
Here and here.
Yes, that's up
we're pointing to our heads and our hearts,
right?
For those that are only on the audio.
All right, before we get too deep in there, let's bring up this bright and shiny face.
Let's do it. Here we go. Hello, Dr. Joli. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Hi, Julietta. I see Gracella need to go get that packet. Like, there was a whole situation there. It was a whole thing.
You know, but this is just the joys of being live.
That is, exactly. I think we should embrace the joys of being live.
So while she's getting her package, will you please introduce yourself to our audience, tell them who you are, what you do, and what keeps you passionate about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Joli Hamilton. I'm the founder of the Year of Opening. I am a research psychologist. I focus on jealousy and people who are shifting relationship paradigms. So in my research, my background is studying one of the emotions people tend to want to avoid the most. But in my day-to-day work, I'm usually helping people who are leaving a mono paradigm, leaving that monogamous life of like, okay, I'm going to follow the Disney version of love and try to get that, and shifting over to something that is a little less well understood, a little less well talked about in our current society. And we do that with a lot of support and nurturing community. One of my favorite things to do is help people transition. What you were talking about earlier, like if you align your beliefs, your life tends to flow well. It's hard when you want a relationship that has more than one partner in it. A lot of us have underlying beliefs that isn't okay. So we got to do a lot of shift inside in order to make our relationships really thrive that way.
God. Oh no, we're going to talk all day. I'm all amped up on all this. I am so ready. Go on, Julietta.
No, but I was just going to say, like, it's so timely that you're coming on the show, and there is someone in my, you know, we talk about social media. This is out there live on Facebook right now, and there is someone in my feed who has, I'll call it coming out of the closet. I don't know if that's a term that we're going to use in these situations, but it's interesting to see her on her journey and talking about this. And I can say I don't know if it comes from the beliefs that I grow up with. It's not something that I feel drawn to, but I can appreciate that someone else can be drawn to. I don't know if we call that a lifestyle or what you want to call that, but seeing her being so open and honest and vulnerable about it, like that, I appreciate so much about her. And I think this is just part of the evolution of us as humans, embracing more and more, being comfortable with, we don't all have to do the same things the same way that everybody else does them.
Yeah, I think you're making an important point. First, I would say, I would call non-monogamy a lifestyle insofar as someone wants to identify it that way. For many people, they feel like that's actually their natural state of being. It feels much more akin to an orientation. And, we don't typically call monogamy a lifestyle, though we could, right? Like the decision to give all of my emotional, sexual, everything attention to one person could be. So I don't get too hung up on that, but I really do think it's important that we have these conversations beyond just the people who are like, oh, this is me. I know it's me. We have to have these conversations culturally because 20% of people in the United States have tried non-monogamy at some point. 5% or more are doing it right now. That means someone, right? 20%, same as the number of people who play musical instruments. Same as the number of people who have cats, right? So we know people who've been in this predicament, we could call it, of, hey, I love multiply, but I need to hide it. And that breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because we're just individuals out there. Everybody's trying to do their best. And when we can have open, honest conversations, that encourages everyone to actually do this well and to not fall into bad relationship habits where we have lying, cheating, or undermining each other's choices, all of those. Let's get rid of all those.
I think it's really important to be super honest with yourself, right? And, our show is really about authenticity. So this is, it's such an important foundation for all of this, right? Is figuring out who you are as a person and then expressing that to another person, right? So you're right. I love creating safe spaces where folks can just be themselves and say, this is who I am, or this is who I think I am. Help me explore this further, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about how you do your work. What does it look like to work with you?
Yeah. Most people expect that it's going to look a lot like couples therapy if they're already in a couple. So they imagine, first off, that they have to have a partner in order to start their opening journey, or they imagine that it's going to look like therapy or counseling. But in fact, what I do, I think of it as comprehensive relationship education. And you might take that on as an individual, you might take it on as part of a couplehood, or as part of a polycule that's already formed. That's a group of people who've decided to commit to each other. And the point is, we stay together. I gather people together in small groups of people because humans need other humans to learn well, right? We need each other. So I gather people into small cohorts, 20 people or less. I get together with them. I meet with them every week over the course of a year. And we spend time learning the skills that I wish we had all learned when we were kids. But let's face it, we were not taught them top down, nor were most of us modeled really healthy relationships. And even if we were, most of us had modeled for us only the monogamous paradigm. And so if you want to do something different, you need this broadening of the imagination. And that's why I call my program the Year of Opening. It's because we spend a year opening up to ourselves, opening our imaginations to what's possible, and figuring out how to actually do that is actually, it's a little less important than stretching the imagination. First, we've got to stretch the imagination. Then we have to deepen your self-awareness. And then we take the steps to actually expand relationally. And so I love working with people in this framework because it's so much more than just reading a book or listening to a single podcast and being like, okay, I'm going to do it. It's about really having support around you, other people who are like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm going to try it. Ooh, I fell down. Oh, that wasn't awesome. Hang on. We're going to get back up and we're going to try again. It's the support I wish I had when I shifted from a mono paradigm to a non-monogamous paradigm 15 years ago.
Well, and I think just it relates to that, but just to everything in general. Like, how much do all of us not know our true selves? Because we're just going through life, like doing what we should do or what everybody else is doing or what we're told we should do. And, I think we all, regardless of whether it's about relationships or anything in life, like we need to get to open up to knowing our true selves.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of my favorite pieces about the work. Sometimes people will show up and they're like, I don't know whether I want an open relationship. I don't know whether that's my truth, or I don't know whether I want to put in the effort. And that's fair. But a lot of times people were either presented this idea from a partner, either a long established partner or a brand new partner who's like, yeah, I like you and I'm polyamorous. Or a long-term partner is like, yeah, I think I found a word that describes how I've always been. Would you explore this with me? And often those people feel really reticent. Like they feel like they've been thrust into a world that they didn't ask for. And I like to think about this as an adventure of self-awareness. You don't have to decide to have multiple relationships. You absolutely don't. No one has to. No one has to decide to have one relationship. Yeah, our culture puts a lot of emphasis on the fact that you need one, but you actually don't. And if you're happy being by yourself, awesome. Or if you're happy with a friend circle and community, awesome, do that. But in that journey of self-awareness, a lot of times people find out that the way that they were doing relationships all along was really developed in a very brief period of time in their late teens, early 20s. They settled on, here are the rules. Like, here's how this should work. Oftentimes they can't even really pull it off. Like they're constantly kind of undermining themselves or partnering with people who can't pull off the thing they think they should do. Big air quotes there. And so they're miserable or just sort of low level, mediocre. And they don't even recognize that because they think it's the way. But we're not in the Mandalorian. We don't have to follow the way. We can actually make our own way. But we have to get really serious about deepening our self-awareness and understanding that we're going to have to be uncomfortable and question some things that up till now we've probably taken as just the water we're swimming in, the air we breathe. We're going to have to question all of that.
Yeah. And I think that takes someone somewhere has a counter of every time I say it takes a conscious effort. But it takes a conscious effort. It takes a conscious effort because particularly with a non-monogamy lifestyle, like you don't see that represented in media. There is no example of that, there are so many different ways to live happily. And there are only 2 or 3 versions of existence, shown
Right.
Constantly, right? So there's always going to be this undoing. I love that you brought up the age range because really, right as you're discovering yourself and you're like, this is a good idea. That's interesting to me. This pulls my attention. All of a sudden, it's like barrier rules,
Right.
boundaries, all of these things. So I imagine that undoing is a big part of what you do.
Yeah, I'm a depth psychologist. I studied Jungian and archetypal psychology. That's my perspective, the lens through which I see everything. So my work tends to start when people are hitting midlife. So most of the people who I particularly enjoy working with are in that 35 to say 60 range. And they're like, okay, I did the things. I checked off the boxes, or I tried. I found some stuff I loved, found some stuff I hated. And now either they're really bored or they are super uncomfortable in a way they can't even name because everything's supposedly fine, or they've never actually figured it out. And all of those things are indicators of what Jung would have called an invitation to your individuation process. And I see a lot of people show up wanting their relationship world to be the place where they find out more about themselves. But that means unlearning and undoing and untangling yourself from the presumptions that you made very early on. And that often leads people into a pretty dark place of like, wait, but I built a life. I built a life I love. How do I reconcile building a life I love with wanting something else? Like, and often their partners are like, but I thought you loved me. Yeah, it is. It's really complicated. It is not a simple thing. Like, okay, well, it's just love is more. It's not quite that simple. It really does require reconciling with, oh, maybe I built this life the best I knew how. And now I know more. And now I want more. I want to do things differently. I want to experiment. And now we're at a time in our life when maybe we could experiment. Maybe the kids are getting a little older. Maybe they've flown the nest. That's often when I see people say, oh, it's now or never for me to answer this call.
Yeah, powerful. Tell us a little bit more about how you got here. You mentioned that you were in a monogamous relationship and then had I'm going to call it awakening, maybe? That's an all right word?
It sure was.
Ago? Yeah. Because, we talk a lot on our show about limiting beliefs and the stories that we've been telling ourselves that keep us small. And so tell us about your limiting beliefs. How did you get here?
Yeah. I had fallen in love with multiple people my whole life. Like since I was a little kid, I like multiple people. And I just thought that was a weird thing about me. And I did the thing I was supposed to do. I had a high school sweetheart. We got engaged when I was 17. I got married when I was 20. I started popping out babies. I did all the things I was supposed to do. Check. Yeah, did it. Nailed it. And I kept falling in love with people, usually my female best friends. That was my go-to, my heart would be there. But I was monogamous. Like I didn't even know another world existed or another word existed. And if you don't know a word for something, it's real hard to imagine it. Words are how we imagine. So when I was presented with the possibility of multiplicity in love, I was 32 years old and a bunch of my friends were talking about how they were swinging a little bit. And some of them were trying this thing called polyamory, which was more than swinging, was actually like about building a life together and allowing multiple loving relationships. And I was like incredibly intrigued, but still but I made a promise to somebody. So I maintained status quo. And then I had what could only be described as a numinous moment. Newman, the sacred, right? I was struck by lightning. And I was struck by lightning with someone who I'd known my whole life. So it seemed especially powerful because I was standing on a dance floor. All my friends were around dancing. And I turned and I was dancing with this person. And I did. I felt everything within me move. I felt this connection run through me. It felt like hot brandy pouring through my spine. Now, I previously had no interest in this person other than as like a really annoying friend. He was annoying friend material, hardcore. I occasionally wanted to slap him because he was arrogant, but other than that, I'd never wanted physical contact with him. And then I did. And then I realized it was my whole being was drawn to him. And after that unfolded a messy story of my naivete, not realizing that my current partner would not be able to handle the fact that this was not a woman this time. This was a man that I was having a crush on. And very quickly, I shifted out of the mono paradigm and was divorced. I was served my divorce papers. I did all the things I was supposed to do. And then I did something crazy and joined a triad immediately. Just jumped right on in. I got invited in and I just jumped. I wouldn't actually recommend that as like a life choice. But, out of the frying pan into the fire is my style. So whatever. It really was for me an awakening. And I think I tell this story because I think a lot of people have an awakening to this possibility. And sometimes we put it aside. We literally put it aside. And if you put yours aside, I would simply have you reckon with the fact that you had the awakening. You don't have to do anything wild and crazy, but could you get to know what that maybe meant? What was your soul calling for? I wish I'd taken a beat and listened. Although I will say I wound up keeping that person. I did. Like he's my anchor partner today, 15 years later. So
wow, beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. The numinous will just have their way.
Ooh, what a pause. We don't have that.
Like, right? That was beautiful. Like the numinous really did have their way. Wow.
Just soaking it all in. Yeah, this is, I really do see this period in time as like everybody is and not just in areas of relationship, but in everything, like looking at what else is possible and not, like, let's stop following the rules.
Well, the rules got us where we are, and a lot of us aren't actually thriving. So what if we question them? And again, I'm not actually against monogamy. If monogamy works for you and you want it, conscious monogamy fucking rocks. Excuse my language. It's so good. Conscious monogamy is wonderful. Those steps people follow through the year of opening often lead them to experiment, explore. And right now it's about 70% of people firmly find themselves like, yes, this is absolutely for me. I have found my path. I am going to figure this out. And another, say 15% around they're pretty sure, but they're still in their questioning and trying to figure out whether this is going to work for them, because they're also called to monogamy. They're still in the questioning, but they know how to question. And then there's another 10%-ish or more. And they just decide, you know what? I tried it on. But now what I found is I really do want to commit fully to one person. And I know how to do all the excellent relationship skills that were going to be necessary in non-monogamy. I can apply every single one of those to my monogamy. Every single time I witness somebody make that choice to enter conscious monogamy, I cheer them on. That's wonderful. The point is to learn the skills, and all the skills of non-monogamy apply beautifully to monogamy. That the same can't be said the other way, unfortunately. When you try to apply the monogamous rules to polyamory, we wind up with a grit in the gears. It doesn't necessarily go real well.
I love your vocabulary. I want to put you in my pocket. Like, I love this. And thank you for sharing your story. Your story, I'm sure, is the story of millions. And I'm thinking, what are some of those, and what time is it? Because I know we're gonna get in there. All right, we're at almost 30 minutes already. But what do you think is the most important skill to have when exploring that type of relationship?
Oh, so if I were going to really answer that, it's the ability to self-reflect and own the genuine, like, somatic sensation and emotion and thoughts, all of that, own all of that, the stuff that's mine as mine, and to not project it onto my partner or partners. And that is, I would differentiate that. I think most people say communication, communication, communication. But I really find that a lot of people are doing better and better at communication. We've got beautiful tools out there. It is super important. But if you don't know what is yours, what is going on, if you can't read your body and read your emotions and understand that your thoughts are yours, if you are over enmeshed or over individualistic, and your communication isn't going to happen. It's just not. It's just not going to happen. So that's what I would say.
Or as I would say, own your shit.
Yes, let's keep it simple. Own your shit. It's yours.
Own your shit. I love that. So where could someone, what's your book recommendation? You know, we always ask everyone that comes on the show, what's your best and favorite book you think everyone should read?
I have two. Because
Perfect.
I have one. If you heard
I mean, honestly, that's funny. Like, you get
right?
it?
I can't.
Like,
I'm polybookerous.
that's
It's true.
funny. Oh my God, write that down.
Yeah.
Write that down. That's a good word.
So I wanted to bring something for the people who are like, ooh, ears perked up about polyamory. And I want to recommend a book by my colleague Irene Morning called The Polyamory Paradox. It's a nice thin read. It's not like, oh gosh, I have to read a tome. She really got to the point, to the heart of things. It's a great intro to, like, what is possible? What might be in all of this non-monogamy stuff? And not everybody is looking for that. Let's be real. So I also want to make a recommendation for all humans, really. This isn't just for women, but it sounds like it is. And I know a lot of men might skip over this book if they were to pass it in the bookstore. It's titled If Women Rose Rooted by Sharon Blackie. And it is a book about authenticity, belonging, about really tuning into yourself, and about rewriting the myths that we have been taught to accept as true, like this one myth, this hero's myth, as like the only story, because we have women's stories too.
Yeah.
That's what I would recommend.
Yeah. Yeah. As you're talking, one of the things that comes to mind, I'm a boudoir photographer. And so I have a lot of people come in with a lot of different requests, and it's so beautiful to see people liberated where they're like, I've always wanted to try XYZ, can I do that in your space? And I'm always like, absolutely. We're communicating boundaries, the hard stops and whatnot, but you are free to be yourself. And one of my favorite clients is a gentleman in his late 70s who wanted to come to the studio and have a full photo shoot dressed as a woman. And, he's like, I don't consider myself a woman, but I just really love women's clothing. And I was like, perfect. That's amazing. And the best part of the story is that he said that he's been wanting to do this since he was a child. Yes. So, when you talked about when you were little and you just knew, you just knew, but no one gave you the vocabulary. No one gave you the option or the example or the representation, right? The Bobbsey twins never talked about this, right?
So real. No, it wasn't in Sweet Valley High. It wasn't in Nancy Drew. Heck,
Not
it wasn't even
Club.
It wasn't even in VC Andrews, and that's saying something.
I know. It wasn't in the attic after all. But yeah. So anyway, no regrets is kind of where I'm leaning into. Is like, and I think that's why most of your clients are middle-aged, because at middle age you're like, wait a minute, like how much time do I have left? Like I just recently turned 50. And I've never cared about my age. It's never been a big thing. And suddenly I'm hyper aware that I'm over the halfway point, like statistically speaking.
Yeah.
And so, I'm kind of like, no, if you're going to try something, try it now. Hurry up before the knees give out.
For real. Anyway, I'm 47. I feel you.
Yeah. So I appreciate your message and I appreciate your books.
Thank you so much.
All right. This was definitely an interesting show. And I really think it has it'll give everybody a little nudge to think, to view things differently. And like I said, like it isn't just about how you want to do relationships, but everything in life, like exploring and asking, like, am I doing this because this is actually me? Or am I doing this because this is how I've been programmed to go forward in life? And and it's also the get out there and explore. Like you might think that you liked something, but you're allowed to change. You don't have to stay how you are. You are allowed to change. And I think that's a huge overriding message in all of our episodes here. So thank you so much for coming to us today, Joli, and check the show notes and everything if what she said today has sparked anything inside of you and you need to get more information. And thank you to all of our listeners. And don't forget to hit the like, comment, share, subscribe, all those things that you know how to do. And they're so simple and they help keep this show going. So with that, I want to wish everybody a magical day.
Thanks, Doctor.
Thank you to both of you.
Thanks for tuning in to another empowering episode of Voices of the Goddess. We hope today's conversation has ignited a spark within you, inspiring you to embrace your authenticity and cultivate self-love in your life. If you've enjoyed today's episode, we invite you to subscribe to our podcast and like, comment, and share it with your friends and loved ones. Your support helps us spread the message of empowerment and healing around the world. Don't forget to check the show notes for ways to connect with us and today's special guest, and to find additional resources to help you on your journey. Remember, you are worthy of love, you are worthy of joy, and you are worthy of all the blessings this universe has to offer. Until next time, remember to honor your truth and spread love wherever you go.